Ladies and gentlemen, we out here changing lives. Welcome
Yeah,
back to another episode of the Rich by Monday podcast. I'm your host, Jared Wilkins, aka the Google Grad.
and I'm Dorrance Creighton. Thanks for joining us again. Welcome back.
Welcome, welcome. So what's been going on, man?
Um, nothing much. Nothing much. Celebrated anniversary. So I mean that's something new. That's
Hmm.
actually today. So
Oh, okay. Happy
6 years.
anniversary.
Yeah, 6 years, and we've been together a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Yeah, because y'all
that's
been together since high school, right?
yeah. It's been since 11th grade, so it's 16 years now.
Man, you know what's funny is um not to like take the moment away from that enormous feat, but it
hmm
just reminded me of something. I seen your dad post something on Instagram the other day. I think
hmm
he posted your business card
hmm
and he was like, "Yeah, this is my son. He been doing real estate for 20 years." And I was like, and I had to think, I was like, "Dang, he was doing real estate when he was like 5?" Like
right. He was like 5 years off, but
I was like, "What?" And I had to think like, well, we are at 30, so you might be right. And I was like, "Nah, I don't think so."
dads don't know your age. They just ask your
Yeah, that's
mama,
true.
like, how old is your boy?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was cool though. Shout out, pops.
I was like,
Always,
"What?"
always been supportive of my entrepreneurial dreams. He's been one that really pushed me in that direction for sure, and allowed me to kind of let that play out, even when in the beginning it didn't play out. So,
I mean,
so
it's
always
still playing out.
appreciative, right? Always
I
appreciated
mean,
that. So,
I mean that's true. I mean, I can attest to that. He would always, anytime we were around, he would always come around and be like, "Man, y'all could do it. Y'all need to do it."
mhm. Yep,
You know,
yep.
um,
He'd
and
be
I
like, "Y'all,
think we were very fortunate in the sense of like having a village.
mm-hmm,
You know what
yep,
I mean? Because I'm thinking about today, like thinking about Jada growing up, and I'm like, where are your friends at? And I mean, I know she's only 2,
right,
but um,
right." But you're already thinking, where's your circle gonna be?
yeah,
Right.
because when we were growing up, man, it was like we were always outside, and the neighborhood kind of looked after each other in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, right? We had home base everywhere we went. Like if you came to my block, it was like my house and Mike's house
Right. Mm-hmm.
and Mike Smith. Shout out Mike Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then if we went, in the other direction, it would be like James House, Mama
Yep.
Liz,
Mm-hmm.
and Anthony House. You
Yep.
know, um, and then we go further, it'd be like your house.
Mm,
Then further than that, it would be Johnny's house.
yep.
You
Or
know,
if you went around the corner, you had
Yep.
Rosavian and his family, um,
True. Yeah, it's
Keith,
true.
Keith and his parents. So,
It's true. They all had the
yep.
same name. That used to trip me out when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
Like Roselle, Rosavian.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one? The was-
I don't
I
know.
remember the girl. His sister was Rosina.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I just think we were very
yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the old block.
yeah, the whole block. Andre and his family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just crazy when you think about it. Like just being able to like have that many people you're still connected to, and that really like watched over you in that sense. And like your parents trusted them.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
my parents
Yeah.
trusted if I went to your house, they didn't have to worry about me acting crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're gonna have like the same amount of rules, same amount of standards. Um, that was pretty much upheld across the board, and um, that's why it's really important. Like to That's why I just say you can't discount like the classic blue collar neighborhood and family.
Hmm.
Like it's a good fabric, you know. So it's a good fabric to raise kids in, and I really want my kids to be raised in something similar. You know, um, I think it's going to be completely different for our kids, just based on demographics or where they're going to be. But hopefully, it should be something similar.
I mean, and just overall trust. Like even my little sister, her I mean, she has her friends that they would go hang out with,
Mm-hmm.
but it was always weird to me, um like how we grew up, and
Mm-hmm.
then like how my siblings kind of grew up. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was similar. Maybe it's because I'm the only boy, but it was
Mm-hmm.
similar. But it was just like I was forced outside, kind of. It was like, yo,
Right.
go outside, like get out of the
Yeah.
house,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and just being able to travel everywhere, and because we'd be everywhere on bikes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
On bikes, skates, scooters, skateboards. Um, we took the bus. We used to take the
yeah, the
22
bus,
bus,
yeah.
and it went all around Rialto. And we're like middle school age. You know,
I can't see parents allowing their kids to do that today.
I don't know why. Like those are like memories that like you'll never forget. I still like if I think about the bus, I can smell it.
That's disgusting.
You can smell it though. You can smell like what a bus smells like. You know, most kids won't even know.
Well, now because they can Uber,
Yeah,
and it's low
yeah,
key. Is it like the same price? Because the all day pass was like what? Well, it's not the same, but
yeah, not the
the
same price.
all day pass was like $1.50 back then, right?
Yeah, I think it went up to like 250. That's the last time I rode the bus. It was about $2.50
Yeah.
at last hike.
Um. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I don't know. I don't think the kids want to have that kind of upbringing. I think they're too smart. They just have too much
Mm-hmm.
available to them, and so a lot of the stuff that we used to do, like it was because we didn't have the access to other things to keep us busy. So
Mm-hmm.
we had to go to different neighborhoods to go play basketball, or
Mm-hmm.
you know make our own map of the city and ride around until
Right.
you know until midnight on bicycle. I feel
Yeah.
like today's kids don't really have there's no incentive, and then the
Mm-hmm.
parents kind of keep them caged up because um our 24-hour news cycle, it just makes you believe that if you leave the house you're not
Yeah.
safe.
100% for sure. Like I don't even look at the news, like the daily news.
Hmm.
Like no, it's just too many things. If you go out, if you look at the news tells you if you go outside, you're gonna die. That's pretty
You
much
know?
like the overall. You're gonna die or get maimed or get seriously hurt, scammed, um, killed. That's all the news. And if you fill yourself with that every day, it's no way you can walk through the world and not be afraid.
Yeah,
So I'm afraid for your children. That's what most people things are. Their reason for everything is like, what about the children? So if you live your life that way, I can see what they call them now, helicopter parents, where they're
yeah,
hovering over the kid and everything they do, trying to make sure they don't get hurt, put them into, put them into all these different extracurricular activities, make sure they're on focus and on point. But I think it has to be um, a certain amount of exploration for a kid, and I think that's part of what we were able to enjoy, um, in our 11 to 15 range.
yeah,
We weren't like babies outside. We weren't like 7 years old running around, but um, I think it helped to be trusted with a little bit of exploration
yeah. I mean,
by
think
your
about it.
parent.
Like, when's the last time you were lost? Because I remember being lost when I was a
Um,
kid. Like if we were out, and or if I went out like without the group, you know what I
mm-hmm.
mean, and or everybody went home and you continued and you on your bike, and then you
Right.
make too many left turns or something, and it's
Right.
like, yo, I
Right.
don't know how I'm I don't know how I'm gonna get home. Like I
Right.
remember one time I forgot where we went, and but and we weren't far, but back then it was far,
Mm-hmm.
It was probably like 2 miles from the house. But I had to actually go to the store. I went to a store and called my dad
Mm-hmm.
because it was late. Like at this point, I'm in trouble, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, it's
it's,
nighttime.
yeah, like,
It's night night.
like I'm already past like the threshold of like, almost in trouble. Like I'm in full blown trouble territory at this moment, right? Because there's no
Right.
cell phones. There's
Yeah.
nothing.
You gave it touch base. Like, hey, I'm on
Yeah,
the way.
exactly.
Yeah.
I can't hit him back and be like, yo, it's a little bit of traffic. None of that,
Yeah.
right? So none of that going on.
Right.
So
Right.
I had to actually stop at the store and ask to use a phone.
Mm.
And my dad came pick me up.
Wow. Tell them where I am, Dad. Or
Yeah, Mr.
storekeep.
Grocery Store, sir.
Storekeep.
Yeah.
We talking about like we didn't have cell phones. Storekeep. Please
Yeah,
tell me where
it
I'm at.
was and I was in trouble, you know what I mean? But thinking about it now, it's like, man, when's the last time you were lost?
Hmm.
Because it's happened one time to me as an adult, but just
The earliest one I can remember is when we went to China like in 2014, 14,
hmm
15. Me, Will, B Wall, shout out Will and B Walls, and I remember we went to go explore a certain area. I know we took the taxi there. We get there and we're like looking at like some type of ruins. I forget the name of them, and we're looking at the ruins, checking it out. We're doing a little exploring, walking around, and then all of a sudden it starts getting dark. We're like, okay, we need to get back. Um, we start walking back to where taxis are, and it had got so late that taxis weren't running at all for some reason. And we have to get back to our hotel. We can't speak the language, dumb American stuff. We can't speak the language. So we're trying to tell people we want to get here. And the guy, we go to the taxi, the only taxi we can see, and he just waved us off like, no, like kind of like I'm off. We don't know what he said. So we walked around trying to figure out like what to do for a long, like at least 30 or 40 minutes
Mhm.
in a country we can't speak the language. We don't know where anything is. All we know is the name of our hotel, and we can't speak any language. And we can't speak the language.
Mhm.
And we end up going to somebody pointed us toward like a hospital, and said he just pointed us over there. We couldn't understand him, or um, and he said, okay, go to the hospital. He's pointing over there, and he's basically pointing saying they had a phone. So
Mhm.
we ended up finding a payphone, and calling back at the hotel and letting them know, hey, we're guests at the hotel. We're in this area. We want to put somebody else on the phone so you can tell so they can tell you where we are, so we can try to get some type of um, taxi.
Mhm.
And that didn't work. That didn't work. Hotel was just like, I don't know where you are. And then what ended up happening is he was basically pointing us to the the hospital because he was saying taxis come across the hospital all the time or coming in front of the hospital all the time. So he's basically saying just go wait over there and the taxi will come.
And that's your best bet, basically.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it. And then we ended up just sitting there waiting, and then the taxi finally rolled up. So that was the last time as a grown adult where I was like, uh, yo, we really out here. And it was one of those like fight or flight type things. Like, no, we're going to get home. We're going to get home. We have to. That was the last time. That's the first thing that comes to memory.
That's
That was a fun
crazy.
trip though. That was a fun trip, but that was terrifying.
I remember the last time it happened to me is when I first moved to Inglewood, and it's not a long story at all. I just happened to get to Inglewood one day and didn't fully know like my way around, and I was coming,
Mm-hmm.
I think after work. It might have been like literally the week we moved in,
Mm.
and I got off the freeway thinking I don't need GPS, right? Because I live here,
Right.
and I get off the freeway, and my phone dies.
Mm-hmm.
And so normally, like in that case, if I didn't have a charger, I'll at least look at the rest of the route so I can memorize it, in case my phone dies.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to like Florence, and that was like all I remembered was I got to Florence, and I was like, okay, I'm close.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent like the next maybe like, I don't know, 2 hours just driving back and forth down Florence, and
Trying to
until,
find the exit.
yeah, making turns, going down neighborhoods that like I shouldn't have. You could tell you ain't supposed to be in this neighborhood at this time.
Right.
Um,
You don't want to be lost.
yeah, and so ultimately, somehow I ended up. I don't know. Somehow I ended up getting somewhere because I actually stopped at the store again. Stopped at
Mm-hmm.
the store and asked somebody like, "Yo, can you tell me where La Brea is?"
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "Man, it's about 30 minutes that way." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"So now I really don't know where I am, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And I just somehow I ended up finding it, and I
Mm-hmm.
made it home. And I got home and Billy was like, what happened to you? Like, cause I called you, your phone died. Like,
Right, right.
where were you at?" And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, and I just was like, I was lost. I'm
I just
sorry.
start crying immediately in her arms. I just start bawling like a child.
I mean, basically,
Uh,
but I mean, because even when we got older, I'm like, even as we got older, it kind of remained the same. Like, we go to Mike's house, same thing.
mm-hmm.
His parents kind of just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, his mom is like our mom in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Going to Joey's house, his dad always welcomed us from the moment. You know what I'm saying? From the moment we went over there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sean and Chris,
Mm-hmm.
same thing. Going, Big John welcomed us over there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that had a lot to do with like just having that leeway, or that that ability to just go out and explore? Do you think that translated into like adulthood when it came to like business and stuff?
Mm, I mean, it could have some type of effect. Um, it could have some type of effect, I guess. Being to have, I could say in my home, in like particularly, um, like I said, my dad was parents both were allowing me to kind of explore my options in entrepreneurship and working on business and building businesses where where that wasn't available for my dad for sure.
Mm-hmm.
When he turned 18, his mom was like, "You got to go get a job, or you got to start paying some type of significant bills." Um, so it's like you're kind of like immediately catapulted into like adulthood as a
Mm-hmm.
kid. So there isn't any way to try things out. It's like, no, you gotta get some type of income coming in immediately. So I don't know. It could have had some type of effect on my ability to have a little bit more leeway, being able to kind of explore as a kid into young adulthood and as a young adult. So and I think that continues. I think it continues if you have those type of parameters set a lot earlier in life,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. 'Cause even now, I'm just like I try to keep a certain amount of leeway and not get so much caught into or trapped into one thing, you know, because I might want to start something else or do something else. So maybe that's
Yeah, I mean,
just, but
I
there's
agree.
some drawbacks to that too.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a type of person that wants to keep a little bit of leeway to do something else, um, you're more likely not going to just stay in maybe a high paying position that would
Mm-hmm.
automatically give you X, Y, and Z. But you'll have to be there all the time, you know. So
Yeah, that's definitely me. They were like, yeah, but you got to be here.
right,
Nah. Yeah, see, that's not gonna work.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, do you want absolute security or do you want freedom? And it's like you have to find a happy medium for yourself and rock from there, But
Yeah.
I think just the being lost thing, it speaks to how long ago we were lost. I think it speaks to more so how much we don't explore now. Even as
Mm-hmm.
adults, we kind of like are like in these small little boxes of being at home, being at work when it was open, Going to the gym, if that's your thing, it's like you're going box to box, and you don't have any time to explore, or you don't allow yourself to explore, and go outside of your comfort zone. So um, we probably need to do more of that. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I think being able to have that freedom when we were younger definitely set me up to just continuously like explore later in life.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Knowing that it takes time, because we could have easily been like, let's look at a map and see how far this school is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and when the school tells you it's far, just not go because you know how far it is already.
Mm-hmm.
Versus just let's get on our bikes and go,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah, for sure.
understanding that there's a time, there's an element of time that goes into like, you know really fleshing things out,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that leads to people, just not making certain moves that they should probably make because
Mm.
they're thinking them out, what I mean, to a point that just stops them from doing it.
Right. That over analyzing. They call
Mhm. Analysis
analysis
paralysis.
paralysis.
And that's true, 'cause I mean I do that a lot anyway, but
Yeah.
it's still, I think just knowing that it's like an immediate thing for me. Like as soon as something comes up, or um something new pops up, I have to get on my bike and go, per se. I have
Mm-hmm.
to I have to go down the rabbit hole and figure out what this is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that helps. I think that
Yeah.
helps.
Another thing we don't think about is, say in that example of, okay, the school is here. We want to go to this location. Um, you have to have a certain amount of data to know that it is possible, right? That trip
Mhm.
is possible, right? So let's say we wanted to go to um, a store, a local store, or a school, or somebody's house, right? We know that location exists, and most likely we know people who've been there, right? So that's our data points. We know it's possible. Like if we know, you know, Johnny made the walk down there, or the bike down there, we know it's possible to get there, right? That's our
Mhm.
data point. So in those parameters, we know that trip is possible. Um, Now, what we didn't do, and what some people don't do, is use the data that's available to them to make those decisions, because that's what it's there for. The data is there for you to make better decisions.
Mhm.
So if someone is saying, they want to explore a little bit longer or a little bit more, and let's say they want to go into entrepreneurship or they want to start a business, well, what industry is the business in? Where do you want to start it? Who's your competition? How much money are you going to make in this business? What's the typical income amount? Um, Take somebody who's going to school, right, to attain
Mhm.
some type of degree. What the people who are in that field, they finish their degree. How much money do they make? Where do they work? Where do they live? Where's their lifestyle like? These are all data points we can actually look at and figure out, if I travel down this road to this school, or um, to the store on my bike, or if I travel down the road of entrepreneurship into this business, there's data points there to let you know how likely you are to be successful.
Mhm.
So let's just use the data that's available, and not just have these dreams of what could be, because anything's possible.
Yeah.
Anything's possible if you don't use the data. But once you start looking at data, you start to see what's realistic, and then that's the world I like to live in.
Well, I think what happens is once we quantify something, it becomes like a hurdle or an obstacle, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there might be an instance where you're a pioneer in that sense, where you're trying to push beyond to, um, there might not be data for the journey you're trying to take,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or at least the data that would be necessary.
Right.
Um, but then once you make that initial trek, and we are able to take that data from there, um, I think for many people, because they don't give themselves the freedom, and maybe it wasn't established early in life, or just they didn't develop it over time, they don't give themselves the freedom to fully make that journey on their own and
Mm-hmm.
think these things through and figure out how to go beyond it. It just automatically becomes like a threshold.
Right. Yeah,
You know
I
what I
can see
mean?
that. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where I think two things happen in that instance. I think one, again, people see it as a limit, and so they'll just try to match it. They won't really try to go beyond it. Let me just get to this point,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and a good example of that is like people's fascination with either six figures or even $1 million now. Because I feel like I feel like that $1 million mark has become like the way, at least that it's being talked about
Mm-hmm.
culturally. It's like a level. You know what I mean? It's like you beat the boss, and now I'm at this level with everybody else who beat this level, and now my
Right.
name is on
Mm-hmm.
the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to take the joy out of making $1 million, like,
Right.
because there's definitely there's definitely joy in that. But
uh,
when you see like I know this, I think it's part of a song. I think it came from J. Cole's song or something. Whereas like if you're clowning a millionaire, the joke's on you.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, so being a millionaire or making $1 million doesn't, like, it doesn't free you from these jokes.
Mm-hmm.
When did this become a safe haven?
Yeah. No, these jokes always gonna fly.
Yeah, but just, and in life though, the way that it's used in life, or the way it's talked about in life, is as if it's some fluffy place
Mm-hmm.
that just rids you of problems. And so I don't think people try to reach beyond that. Just like with a six-figure job, right? I need the
Mm-hmm.
six-figure job. It could either be for myself or it could be something they require for their mate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they say, I need the six-figure job. Well, what else does that come with? You know what I mean? It sounds like a fairy tale land initially, but once you get there and you realize tomorrow is still Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, right? So I
Yep.
think that's one thing that happens. And then two, or secondly, it gets used against you as they say this is the limit. You can go far beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how people draw you into things that lead you down a path that leads nowhere near that. But you can get
Mm-hmm.
drawn in by somebody who's saying, don't listen to the data. The data is here to limit you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. In terms of people like playing on your hopes of
Yeah.
making X amount of dollars.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because just not even just money, like not even just money, just in general. Like once we quantify something, it becomes either a limit or it could become like a tool for someone to take advantage of you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And just money is just the easiest way to kind of explain it. But you see it like in MLMs. They'll come in and say, multi-level marketing companies. In this company, you can make X amount of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now we can ignore the data that shows you exactly what these people make, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll tell you to look away from that,
Yeah.
because if you pay attention to this, these are people who don't have success telling you telling you how to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So you ignore all the data that's there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
listen to someone who's telling you to ignore it.
Well, that's two sided. The person who tells you to ignore this data, you can make X amount. The other person on the side has to have some level of delusion that allows them to happily accept that narrative as 100% true, right? So if if someone tells me, hey, the top person here makes $500,000 a year, I'm like, oh, that's great. Um, the other person makes 250,000. Okay, that's great. That's the top person, right? That's the top 1%. What's the likelihood of a person coming in from now to 6 months? from now to the year, what's my income going to look like? Where's that data?
Hmm.
Because people buy into them being that one outlier. We're in a world where everyone's special. Everyone has a chance. Everyone can make it, and everyone can't make it. And I know that's I know that's different from what most people hear, but it's just based on the numbers. If you're in the top 1% of people, to be part of the top 1% of people, someone has to fall out. It's just numbers, right? Or the top 20
Yeah.
percentile, right? If you look at it as like a pyramid, it has to be top 1%, the top um, 10%, 20%, 50%, and everybody below. That everybody below level, endless people can fit in that.
Yeah.
But there's only amount of it's a finite amount of people who can fit in the 20 top percentile. That's just math.
Yeah.
There can be everyone below the 50% mark and people who aren't counted at all. These are people who aren't even in the workforce. They don't even get counted.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're not thinking about. Like the people who make zero income, right? They're not are people who don't make zero income. They're not on the books at all. They're not counted. These people still exist, but they're not counted when someone is saying what your ability can be in a company like an MLM. The people who make zero, they aren't counted at all. It's like let's not look at them. It's
Yeah.
like let's
But
not
that
look at that data. We're not going to add them
exactly.
into the pile.
Exactly.
It's like no, when you
Exactly.
add everyone, then you get the true numbers. We're not talking about the top one, top 20, top 10 in the company. We're talking about everyone. Like you would have to run a median value of how much people make. It's like the census. The census runs a median household income. The 2020 census just passed, so that income is 75,000 now. That's of everyone who lives in a house that is 18 or older making money. That household makes $75,000 a year.
Hmm.
That's the number, right? That's in California.
Yeah, that's
So,
crazy. And when you
so
think like when you look at other places,
yeah,
it's
it,
crazy.
it's it's absolutely crazy. So, um, when I see, we're kind of going off a tangent now, but when I see somebody who drives a certain thing or is wearing a certain thing, I know that doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with the median of people.
Hmm.
So I think we get caught up in looking at these outliers of people who are the top 1% who can drive this type of car, live in this type of house, wear these type of clothes, and everyone says that can be me. What it could be, but let's run the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, you're right though. You're right because it can be you. And um one of the things that adds to my frustration in a lot of this stuff that we talk about is because in many ways I feel responsible for it,
Mhm.
right? And um now of course it's pretty hubris of me to think that I have this kind of influence on the world. That's not what I'm saying. But just
Mhm.
being coming from like having our background and being where we come from and what we've been through, we've made many of the same mistakes that people are still making today. So
Mhm.
because I made them, I feel like it's when I see other people making them and you're trying to like steer them in a different direction, it's like I really can't because if they knew me back then, they probably make the same decision.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
You know what I mean? And so you can't say, "Hey man, don't do this. Don't go get a don't go get a $300,000 car and park it in your working
Mhm.
class neighborhood."
Right. Right.
You can't tell them that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And not don't go to the club, don't go vacation, don't do none of that. And then if you knew me back then, as Mike would tell you, I would try to spend $1,000 a day
Right. Yeah.
for what?
Yeah.
like,
I know. I
like,
know. I would
like
I would
I would,
start. I would start my day going to the bank to get $1,000 of petty cash. Like who do I do to think I
Oh, who
want
exactly? Like what?
to
I
get
was
some petty
wilding,
cash? So
wilding. But it's just all of that, man. So when I see a lot of what's going on, I get really, really frustrated because I'm really upset at myself.
mm.
But
But I think
going,
some.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
No, you
I was,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, people have to make a certain amount of like mistakes on their own to even understand. Um, now, now I now I present the data first, and I know it's boring, and people like, yeah, whatever, you know, yeah, I know what your data says, but I'm gonna be that one outlier because I'm special.
Man, it's crazy to think that, man. It's
Like I'm
crazy.
special, and it's just it's funny because this is not something you're gonna hear or anything else. Everyone else is gonna tell you you can make it, you can do it, and you can. But I think we gotta have we have to have our reality merge a little bit with our delusions to where we can be a little bit closer to what's really possible.
Yeah, but people are
So
full on delusional.
I
Like, and
know,
I
I
think I think
know.
that's I think that's different. I think that's more evident today versus back then, because you
Oh
still kind of
yeah.
had to deal with like actual people in a sense, whereas today you can impact many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and you've never met them, you never had an interaction
Mm-hmm.
with them. It
Yeah.
was a transaction or an impression, some form of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So today, I think people are just full on delusional, and it's easy. It's easy to be delusional.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And because it's the information cycle is instant.
Yeah.
So it's instant and it's constant. So I even give you an example, like we talked about last week, when we were talking about like the stadium,
Mm-hmm.
and gentrification and all that. We are talking about the stadium in Inglewood, and I remember an instance where I was dealing with a potential client who we even got on the phone by accident because
Mm.
um, the stadium is on Century and Prairie, right? Prairie runs north and south. Century runs east and west, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the stadium is there on Prairie behind the Forum. The Clipper Arena is proposed to be somewhere at that intersection of
Mm-hmm.
Prairie and Century. Um, there's a guy who owns a hotel on Century, maybe a couple blocks west of that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called him about a building that he owns, um, you know, two buildings over, a 22 unit apartment building. And we met, about the property,
Mm-hmm.
if he'd be willing to look at an offer and whatnot. So we're talking about the property. Like I said, it's 20 something units, but it's South Inglewood, right? So um, it's more dense down there. The property taxes are higher because, of course, it's more dense. So things like sanitation, um, utilities, they're more
Mm-hmm.
expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the units are smaller. It was 22 units, but the building was only like 8,000 square feet, 7 or 8,000 square feet. Um, like each unit was like 400 square feet. Like it's ridiculous, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So on that side of the street, the gas station is on the corner. It's his property, and then like another 8 unit building right next door that has a huge lot and has a small single family residence next door as well. That's owned by
Mm-hmm.
another guy. So when we saw that building, we immediately wanted to talk to the next guy next door because, well, it might make sense for you guys to sell these together. You'll get more value.
Right.
Um, so anyway, fast forward, I end up getting in contact with this guy, and he
Hold on.
can't talk. Yeah. So anyway, um, having some technical difficulties and toddler difficulties. Um, yeah, people are delusional. So going into this, scenario that I'm talking about now with the property in Inglewood, that we talked about before about the stadium coming to the city and whatnot. And so having to deal with um, pretty much every single owner in the city, believing that the stadium will add exponential value to their property. So I dealt with an owner specifically um, who had like a shitty apartment building that was like 8 or 9 units, but it was on a decent piece of land, and it was next door to another guy who I had a relationship with, and so he was open to selling both properties together since they were neighboring each other. Collectively, it was a little over a half an acre in terms of just land, right? So in that sense, when you're valuing land, the or depending on what it's used for, the the way that's used to determine the value is like they pay a certain dollar amount per acre, right? So in this sense, the average was around 2.875 per acre, right? And it was a little over a half an acre. So um, we figured if we were to actually market the building or market the properties, we could probably push it to 3 million, or maybe even a little more, over 3 million an acre, which would get them roughly around like between 1.5 to maybe like 1.8, right?
Okay.
For both buildings. So anyway, I end up talking to the guy who owns a shitty little apartment building, and through text. And once we got down to, or as we were about to get to numbers, he actually reaches out to, I guess, a guy who represented him in other transactions or has his other buildings listed. And that guy called me, and he was a residential salesperson. So when he called me and I looked him up to see who he was, I already knew that there would be like a barrier there in terms of the
Mhm.
negotiation process, right?
Right. You're
So
talking two different languages.
yeah. And it even got to the point where I didn't even talk to him. I just went straight to the owner, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not the story.
Yeah.
So I'm talking. I did the math, right, and I'm talking to them like to see what they want, and I said, well, this is what we think the building is worth. We think if he sold the apartments, it'd be about $1 million
Mm-hmm.
for the apartments, and he says, well, he wants to sell it for the value of the land, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well, just based on the math, like if he sold it at land value, it'd be about 2.8 an acre, which comes out to about $1 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you
Right.
sold them together with the guy next door, we can probably push it to about $3 million per acre, which would get you around 1.5 million, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, no, he the owner wants $6 million for the land,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So now I just told you that the average was $2.8 million per acre. That's for an entire acre of land. We're talking about a half an acre of land at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants $6 million,
Right. Right.
right? So that price would put him like 600% like more expensive than anything that has ever sold
Mm-hmm.
in the history of the city,
Yeah.
including the people who bought the stadium, right? Nothing has ever sold for this amount of money or near
Mm-hmm.
this amount of money ever, and won't ever,
Right.
right? So I had to ask him, like, well, where does that come from? Like, what makes you think if someone wanted this property, they would pay that much for it? Like, what type of financial sense does this make?
Yeah.
And he said, oh, if they want it bad enough, they'll buy it.
And this is someone who's just not going to even listen to data at all.
No. And so I had to write this long, um stern email
Mm-hmm.
that didn't include any French,
Right.
but
Right.
you know, it definitely should have,
Mm-hmm.
and explain to him that what he's asking for is 600% times, than anything that is sold. But um, going back to the
That's
original point, right? It's people are really, really, they ignore the data and really get delusional. And
mm-hmm,
that's like a real life instance of where I had to deal with um a delusional individual. And then and I have
mm-hmm,
no problem telling them they're delusional.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I looked at his other listings because he had five other properties for sale, five other apartment buildings, and they were all
Mm-hmm.
about 200 to 300% over market,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? And I even tried to reason with him and say, like, do you think, okay, first of all, there's a new stadium coming here, and the city owns the land that the stadium is, or the arena is being built
Mm-hmm.
on. What makes you think they won't exercise eminent domain and just take your property?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm putting a new arena here, I don't want all these little, these shitty little buildings
Mm-hmm.
in front of the arena.
It's interesting. The more data you show and the more reason you use, people only just stay firm into their thinking.
Because they think you're trying to one up them. And I understand where that comes from. Like, because especially in sales, people are trying to get over on you.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are that way. Like everything has
Yeah.
to work in their favor. And so they're gonna make sure your situation is bad as long as they come out okay.
Right. Right. I
So
can see
I,
that.
I understand where that comes from, but I feel like I did a good enough job to present you the information
Mm-hmm.
with supporting data. Like I showed you the comps. Um, like I always try to like stress that anything that I'm talking about is not necessarily my feelings. This is
Mm-hmm.
based on this information will not change
Mm-hmm.
regardless of who you hear it from. And but I think some people just didn't want to, like, they feel like you're trying to rob them, right? And like every transaction is like a robbery. And maybe they've
Yeah.
been robbed in the past. So that
Mm-hmm.
could be
No,
that
no,
could be
no.
a reason.
They've been wrong in the past, and this is just them trying to catch up and be right.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
right.
when people are wrong for so long, and a a history of losing and being wrong, it's like they have to be right. They absolutely have to be right, because if it's you who are making the wrong decisions based on your incorrect data, you have to look at yourself and start and say, you have to start at a place of, I was wrong. No one wants to admit that, because if you have to start with I'm wrong, you're really breaking down like beliefs that you hold that you hold dearly to. And it's basically like a domino effect. If this is wrong, this could be wrong. If this can wrong, this could be wrong. And no one's willing to go down that road.
But you are wrong though, and you will be wrong. Like that's the thing.
Yeah,
That's
but
was like I
holding
don't
on
understand that.
to
Hold on
being
to what?
right, holding on to being right to your delusion. If you hold on to your delusion, you don't have to do the work. Once you say I'm wrong, you have to do the work to figure out why you're wrong, why it's not working. No one wants to do that. So they'll always think they'll be the one outlier. My building's special. I'm special. My situation is special. It's unique. Or they'll say, well, the building here sold for this. Well, that building there is not you. It's not your building.
Yes. Yes.
It's not the same. They're not equal.
Yeah.
It's possible for that one building to be an outlier. Just because that one building found an idiot to overpay market, that doesn't mean that you're going to get just as lucky. It could have been
Mm-hmm.
a 0.002% of that buyer wanting to buy that property. And it can be for reasons that are absolutely ridiculous and not even tied to data. It can be,
Exactly.
I grew up right across the street. I remember going to this liquor store, with my dad. you know, who's no longer around. So it's like some type of sentimental value that's built in.
Mm-hmm.
You can't blanket sentimental value to people across the whole market.
No.
You know, it's and these concepts are the same for everything. Everything, every decision you want to make, there's data points available for you to make better decisions.
And see, everybody, you know what it is everybody's looking for the one, like the one, right? Everybody's looking to get rich or to have like the ultimate outcome on every decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like so
It's a home
it's
run.
not that
Everything's a home run. No
everything,
one's
yeah,
trying to
everything's a
bunt.
home run. So
There's no bunts. There's no getting
it's not
on
that
base.
it's not that they're wrong. Well, they are wrong, but they're not looking at it as, I don't care if I'm wrong. They're looking at it like I need this to be the grand slam of all grand slams.
Mm-hmm. What
And
just
and you know,
what's wrong with getting on base?
I don't know, man.
What's wrong
Cuz
with getting on base?
every time I talk to somebody who and again, maybe I'm fortunate in that sense to be able to have a lens um into people's lives in that matter, cuz cuz we have to interact with them to talk about their property and their life story, and you go to their house, you meet their family type thing. um so I mean, I do understand, like, I'm fortunate in that regard, but at the same time, like, when you hear about everything they do, they didn't do anything crazy. Like, every
Mm-hmm.
move didn't make them rich.
Mm-mm.
They were just out here just making moves based on the data they had in front of them. Like, okay, well,
Yeah.
my grandpa said if I buy property, then I'll always be okay. I always have a place to stay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
One of the very first one of the very first people I talked to. Actually, she was my first call, like
Mm-hmm.
day one.
Mm-hmm.
My first call was like an 80-year-old lady who owns 9 buildings in Inglewood. Like, portfolio is like now probably like 18 or 20 million, right? Drives a Subaru Forester or something, or Outback. Like,
Right.
some-
Dusty.
yeah, like something you wouldn't even like think about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she told me her story. They came down here from the Midwest, from like Detroit, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the first house they bought, because when they bought a house, it was very, very difficult for Black people to get financing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when they bought a house, the guy sold in the house, but he carried the note.
Yep. That was very
And
typical back then.
he gave them, it was a 12-year loan. I forgot what the interest rate was, but it was a 12-year loan. So she said that they did whatever they could to not only pay their mortgage, right, but also pay more
Mm-hmm.
so they can hurry up and you know, get from underneath him, basically.
Right. Uh-huh.
And she said by year like 6 or 7, their house was almost paid off.
Mm.
And she was like, we used once we got to that point where we were able to refinance, right? We took that money and bought another house
Mm-hmm.
and did the same thing until we start buying property, like income property, like apartment buildings.
Mm-hmm.
She bought two small fourplexes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Used that money and the income, and then went and bought an 8 unit, and just kept going, right?
Yep.
And she's been doing that, and it's so simple. And it's just like, I just been doing that.
Yeah. I've the similar stories from my clients are the same thing. You know, I started investing in the early 70s. I bought a duplex and I sold that and bought 4 units. So that bought 8 units,
Mm-hmm.
10, 12, now on 30 units. And, this is over, you know, 15, 20, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's how this stuff happens. Um, so I can see the way that the things that we say and the things we share can run. Uh, they're countering everything that's out there. because it's not exciting. It's not exciting to be like, I'm going to be rich in 30 years, 15 years, 20 years, when you can open up an app and see that a YouTube star is making, 2 to $5 million a year.
Yeah, but you don't know that. You don't. But that
You don't.
going back to what you said earlier. Like we don't have that data because you can have all these things and not be
Mhm.
wealthy. We know that
Yeah.
you can
I mean,
have designer clothes. You can have a car. You can have all these things
yeah.
and make 60,000 a year.
hmm you've run the numbers on what it takes to lease or purchase, well, in this case, lease exotic vehicles. And if you have uh, $1,500, $2,000, you can be in one.
Yeah,
You
it's
can be
not
in one.
difficult.
Like, that's not a lot of money. And the same for every other vehicle. Let's not even talk about like the exotic cars that are maybe like between 250 and 300,000. All the other cars that you see between 100, 150,000. Um, most of those cars are like 1,000, $1,200 a month. Would you say?
It depends on a number of things, but just usually I like to, if I'm just looking for a number, I say like 1.5% of the value
hmm
would be your monthly payment. 1 to 1.5%. 1%
So,
is like ideal. You want to pay 1% of the value.
so if we're looking at $100,000 cars, that's $1,000.
Yeah, depending on the brand,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I've seen leases for, I've seen Rolls Royce leases like for Ghost, Wraith, all that,
hmm
um, under 1%.
mm,
So if it's a I mean, it would be brand new in a sense, but I do know guys who do leasing on older cars. But even on a $240,000 car, right? That might be a year and a half old.
hmm
I mean, you're paying 1,900, $2,000 a month.
yeah. So I
In
mean,
a $400,000 car.
so okay, so $2,000 for the car. Let's say $2,000 for rent somewhere
Mm-hmm.
in LA, right? That's very typical. Another 2,000 for whatever other expenses to rent a household of maybe a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartment. We're talking $6,000. Let's throw another $1,000, $7,000, $7,000 a month. How much is that a year?
It's 84 grand a year, just in expenses, but 84 grand. Yeah.
Okay, so median. Well, we just talked about the median income in California is 75,000. So you telling me if you make the median household income of 75,000, maybe 80,000, you can look like a millionaire?
Yeah. If you got roommates.
I can take
Yeah.
I can take multiple pictures with my car, with my clothes, and I can post it on Instagram and say you can be just like me. Like,
Yep.
these things don't cost a lot.
No.
They don't cost a lot. It doesn't cost a lot to fake it.
It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it does cost you a lot of time. And I think
Mm-hmm.
for me, once I really started getting with people who like really had like real money, not like, you know, I made $1 million this year, or even a couple $1 million. Like I'm talking about real like wealth where the money is
Mm-hmm.
just, it just keeps coming anyway. Like
Right.
I make 500 grand, 700 grand in the
Mm-hmm.
mailbox,
Right.
right? Um, once I started getting around people like that with the higher end net worths, it was a lot of unlearning. And it made
Mm-hmm.
it kind of like I was really upset at myself for believing in a lot of the things that I believed in early on, like in
Mm-hmm.
life. Because everything you're getting exposed to is telling you like all of that is bogus.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent so much of my life thinking things were one way.
Yep.
So you have to unlearn a lot of that. And it's hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's so in your face all the time. Like we were just talking about earlier about the forex thing, right? So you got the forex guys, they out here big forexing. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? They big forexing, you know what
Big
I mean, with
forex.
with the jewelry and all the designer stuff and making 6,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
But they got on everything, right? They got everything on,
Mm-hmm.
telling you should do what they do, right? And if you want those kinds of things, that's what you're going to be drawn to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they might be able to have that now at and that is actually a very good example of it doesn't take much. Because if you make it 6,000 a month, that ain't number 72 grand a year. Gross.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
Yeah. So if you spend $3,000-4,000 because you starting at zero, you didn't have nothing before.
Mm-hmm.
So because you were a college student or whatever, and you spend 3 to 4 grand just on clothes and whatever you spend it on every month is marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can easily look like you're something you're not.
Yeah.
It's not hard to
Yeah.
get it's not hard, bro. It's not hard to get any of these things. The financing exists to get all these things, and just
Mm-hmm.
because the financing exists and they're insurable, it becomes really, really cheap
Yeah.
to get these things. But you know what? This is why I say I had to do a lot of unthinking or
Unlearning.
unlearning, because we've always been into like real estate and owning
Mm-hmm.
property. And once I really got into owning apartment buildings, that's what drove me into commercial, especially after seeing you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Syndication and all that other stuff.
Right.
And then once I realized, like, you know, you're not going to get a building here unless you have pretty much $1 million,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So then when you're talking to people who, again, who are worth millions of dollars, but they don't have $1 million, they
Mm-hmm.
have to sell a building to use as a down payment
Mm-hmm.
or refinance an asset to pull equity out and use
Right.
as a down payment. So then that kind of, to me, that let me know that the person that has everything on them or in front of them has nothing behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all these things, and I hate saying this, but you have all these things, but I know you're broke
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because you
You're
don't
out here
have a million
playing.
dollars.
You're out here playing.
Yeah, because
You're
even
out.
you can gather all your wealth together, and you wouldn't even be able to buy a 5 unit building here.
I mean, you're not even talking about a building. You can't even qualify for a house.
I was trying to be nice.
No, you can't be nice. You can't, because I always tell people you buy your real estate first, because it's going to mess up your debt to income ratio.
Yeah.
So if you really want to figure out what you can afford right now, you can do this math, okay? You just take your income, whatever your monthly income is, and you multiply it by about 48%. Whatever that number is, you use that number and you subtract whatever your liabilities are. So your cars, whatever's on your credit, your cars, whatever credit card payments you have, and whatever that number is now, that's what you qualify for to buy a house.
Hmm.
That's simple math, right? So if you hear what I said, you're basically cutting your income in half. So let's say you make $10,000. 50% of that cuts in half immediately. Your debt to income ratio. You have $5,000. You have $1,000 car payment. Now you have $4,000. You have another $1,000 in credit card bills. Now you have $3,000. You have another miscellaneous $1,000 in whatever else. Now you have $2,000. And this $2,000 has to fit in your principal, your interest, your tax, and
And
insurance
your insurance.
for a home. Now you qualify for a $2,000 payment. Where if you didn't have all these dumb liabilities just to look cool, you would qualify for a mortgage payment that's $5,000 if you make $10,000 a month. Now, how many people make $10,000 a month? Not many. So do your own math. Do your own math at home and see how
Yeah,
how excited it is to drive around in $1,000 car.
man, that
Like,
that changes everything when it gets in the way of what the ultimate goal is. Because
yeah.
again, it might not cost you much up front, but it'll cost you in time. It'll cost you on the back end to have all these
Mm-hmm.
things, right now. Or I won't say to have them, because I don't want people to feel like you got to live boring until you make money. That's not everybody's thing.
The
But
first thing I said was you buy your car, you buy your real estate first. Buy your house
Hmm.
first. They will always give you a car. It's easy.
Super
The
easy.
last time I bought a car, you just go in there, you show your credit, and they just give it to you.
Hmm.
It's stupid. It's so easy. It's so easy to go buy a car. It'll always be there.
Man, when the last car I bought, they told me how much money I made.
Yeah.
They
You're
said,
like,
"This is what the
yeah,
bank
that's
want to
about
see."
right.
I said, "Hey,
Go
yeah,
get
that's
the driveway
right."
today.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what my paycheck stub says.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
yeah, I mean
I mean,
it's
you can.
not hard, bro.
It's ridiculous.
It's
It,
not hard, but that's what keeps people. That's the delusion, right? That's what we keep coming
yeah,
back to. That's the delusion. It's I have to have these things because that's what we see as, you know,
being successful, but
yeah,
this is what the real thing is going on. We have a bunch of thousandaires studying on other thousandaires, and we everyone looks stupid.
yeah.
That's the reality. That's what's going on right now. Everyone is flashing on everyone, and everyone's broke.
Well, because everyone's a marketer. Like, why is yo? I went down my timeline the other day, and I swear I got, like, no lie, no exaggeration, I think I got like 7 sponsored ads
Mm-hmm.
by people selling Turo courses.
Wow.
So, so if this is in we talk about like the hustle and all that, I get all of that. My thing is when someone goes to get a job. So say you like say I went and got hired today as like a project manager somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would I come out with the project management course? What would be my
If you got
incentive to come out with the project management course?
if you got hired as a project manager,
Yeah.
um, to make some extra money on the side or something.
Look, I mean, that could be a thing. That could be a thing, right?
Mm.
Or would it be um that I actually don't want to be a project manager and I'd rather just sell you that I know how to be a project manager?
Right.
Like what we all can't be, everything just feels like one big MLM, bro. Like it's like everything just feels like one big multi-level marketing company where it's like, hey, you can do this too. And then
Mm-hmm.
not only do you become the client, but you also become the partner because now you're turning around doing the same thing. Hey, you can do this too, right? And so everybody's
Right.
buying the same products and selling the same products to each other,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they're associates, right? And so I'm like, everybody can't do this. Like this is
It's,
not this is
mm-hmm.
not sustainable. We all can't be marketers. And I don't know. It just blew my mind. Like I was just like, you know what? I'm ready for the market to crash. Like I'm just ready for all this to be over. I'm ready for the crash. I'm ready for y'all just to
Uh,
go home. Like,
you know what? I don't think that'll be an issue. I don't think that'll happen. The internet is separate from reality. Whatever's happening in the real world, it can be a crash, it can be a whatever. On the internet, everything's fine. Internet stays very static. With everyone's doing fine, everyone looks great, everyone relationships are perfect, everyone's making money. Like the internet doesn't reflect the real world. So even if things does crash or do crash, it'll just be more courses out on how to do better in the crash, how to survive the crash. This is what you do with your money now. There'll always be a new pivot on the internet of marketing. Always. It's going to be endless. This is our life now.
that's
So
terrible. That is, I am not looking forward to that. That is terrible.
the only thing we can do, and as we're doing this, I'm realizing um what our role can be and what's going to eventually happen. And I think it's just really just being a sounding board to reality. Like someone has to like hold down reality to say, hey guys, that's cool and all, but look at the data. Let's look at the data. Let's check this out.
Hmm.
I know y'all studying, everybody's doing great, but let's look at the data real quick. I'm gonna just throw this out. I'll just leave this right here, and then if you want to check it out, you can. If not, that's fine too. And
Yeah.
I think that's the most we can do. That's the most I'm willing to do. That's the most I'm willing to do because I got to go back in reality and work. So
So okay, when you say it like that, like you gotta go back into reality and work. So are these people
mm,
not working?
you broke up some. You said the people are on what?
Yes, are if we gotta go back in reality to go to work,
Mm-hmm.
are these people not working?
They're marketing working.
I understand, but marketing is some buttons online. I'm talking
Yeah.
about like if
No,
you're
I
not
don't
working.
believe. I don't believe they're in the real world working. the The work that they do is telling you to do the work. If that makes sense. So they're
No,
telling you
it makes a ton of
they're
sense.
telling you how to market the work that you do. That's it. Like the most successful people, and I've been learning the internet for a while now, and I'm not great at it, but I'm understanding it a lot better. The people who are there the most are people who can push out the most content to get around um the algorithm. Uh, like what is it? The entertainment sites, right? Like
Hmm.
what is a popular one? Um,
Or like
what is
Shade Room or
Yeah,
something,
like
or
Shade Room, and all those different ones. I seen if you go to their page, they post 30 to 35 times a day. That's endless content. Right? They can just post whatever, right? Because it's just all these different salacious things, whatever that happen in the media, whatever. That's pretty much easy. And then the person who markets marketing, they post how to market, and they do 20, 15, 20 different posts. It's easy to do because you're in the business of posting about posting. You don't have to get back into the real world and do the work, right? Your work exists where you are. So
Yeah.
people who have like real industry jobs in whatever industry, let's say they run a trucking company, they don't have time to post 30 times on the internet because they're running a trucking business, right? The person who um, who sells hotel buildings, they don't have time to post about selling hotel buildings 30 times on the internet because they're out doing the work. So I think
Mhm.
there's going to always be a limit to people who are connected to reality, doing the work in the real world, and there's always going to be that disconnect. So, in other words, people who can post more will always have the more amplified voice,
Yeah.
and that's just something you just have to deal with until we can pay somebody to cut this up and post 30 times for us.
Yeah. That sucks.
You
That's
know,
terrible, man. I mean,
so
cause like I remember reading a story like not too long ago about um like the first 7-Eleven franchise, like owner operated,
mm-hmm.
being owned by a black man,
Okay.
and
Well,
it's in Vegas.
how's that possible?
That's what I'm saying. But nobody wants like that job is not. I can't sell you that course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he's not going to sell a course because he's running the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, like he's actually doing what he needs to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Right.
Um,
Or a
you
real
know,
life example that we know, partner Ralph
yeah, Ralph
Diesel.
Diesel. Yeah, Ralph Diesel owns
Yeah.
two subways. He's the first Sierra Leonean subway
Mm-hmm.
franchisee.
Right. So I don't know if he has a course yet, but I know for sure he had his time tied up in running those businesses.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough to post 30 times and sell a course.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Ralph is different. I don't know. He might be able to pull it off. But Ralph is
Hey, I'm not mad. Hey, I'm not limiting anybody's hustle.
Ralph is different because I think they're flipping houses now too. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shout out
But
Ro.
yeah, yeah, him and OB. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just seeing things like that. It's like you one is like, okay, well, why did it take so long? But
Mm-hmm.
then like culturally, that's the type of work that we frown upon.
Mm-hmm.
Now this guy who's working at this 7-Eleven franchise can absolutely have any car he wants. He can have any type of jewelry that he wants.
Mm-hmm.
He can wear any kind of clothes he wants because he's the owner. And I know what those
Mm-hmm.
franchises bring in, because those ultimately end up becoming triple net lease deals that I pitch to my clients,
Right. Mm-hmm.
who will own the real estate. And so
Yep.
I know what the rent to sales ratio is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot. The ratio will be slim, but the in terms of how much they bring in sales and what their rent is relative to that number. Um, and 7-Elevens are actually great tenants, corporately guaranteed. Not to go off on a tangent, but
Mm-hmm.
corporately guaranteed, it'd be a nice property to own. Um, so I mean, those guys can have all that, but it's just the work that's associated with getting that kind of stuff is frowned upon. So that's why it takes one random guy to be like, hold up, like, what am I doing here trying to
Yeah.
be Quavo?
Yeah.
When I can go own a 7-Eleven and make just as much money as Quavo, if not
Mm-hmm.
more. I would assume more, just knowing what I know about
What?
publishing and everything else. I would
Mm-hmm.
assume that he might make more.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they spend all their money, so you see it.
Right.
Not to be
You're not
counting
gonna see.
people's, yeah, not to be
Right.
counting people's pockets, but um, it's just frowned upon. Like, what young black male do you know is just gonna, if you were think about when we were younger, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, why don't you just go work at 7-Eleven?
No, no, the money too slow. I'm not gonna get paid. I mean, minimum wage back then was what, $5.75,
Mm-hmm. Probably less
which
than
is
that.
crazy when you think about it.
But still,
It's
just
absolutely crazy.
overall, because it doesn't matter how much you're getting paid if the work is the same. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's owner operator, so he works there.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what
It's
the
better
pay
than paying
is,
somebody else, I don't know, 40,000 a year if you can just be there and absorb that cost.
that's what I'm saying.
Especially while you're building.
But you don't have to build anything. Like, it's already built. The concept is built. It's a franchise.
No, I'm more saying like getting your first franchise, getting the money together to buy it a second.
Oh yeah.
You can retain that the money going out if you to hire some outside person. But um, yeah, I think we have a big issue with being cool. If it ain't cool, like people ain't doing it. You know.
How is that not see? But how is it not cool? Is it cool based on, like, because the outcome could be the same. Like, I could still have all these things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the overall, like, encompassing, like, definition of success for our people is to just have things. I can still have
Mm-hmm.
those things.
Um, I would think of it like this. Um, when I was doing a strictly commercial sales, and now I'll do um, I'll do mostly like smaller multi-family units,
Hmm.
which is really still considered residential. Um, I've thought of it like this. Okay, uh, the typical commission that I was getting for selling a commercial building, let's say, would be X amount, right? But we know commercial buildings don't trade all the time, so I had to ask myself, um, do I want to have um, the the prestige that goes behind saying I'm a commercial broker, or do I
Hmm.
want the money? Right. So when I was at another outside brokerage, and I didn't have my own brokerage at that time. the split was different, right? I was basically just taking 25%.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember selling a pretty large building at that time, and the full commission check was uh, about 350,000.
Mm-hmm.
And after it got split up and everything, my check was about 48,000 or something, right? Um, and that building was it over 10 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to ask myself, do I want to be a commercial broker exclusively, or do I want the money? And the reality is, I can sell $1 million property, and my commission will be the same as I
Yeah,
did
as a
of
broker.
a, a tens of millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my point is, some people like the idea of a certain industry that they're in, that it's not just about the money, it's about the perception, right? So I think some people, um, they like the perception of an industry rather than the result, to
Mm-hmm.
use your word. Um, and I think that just depends on who you are. For me, I like the result. If if I sell a building, I don't care how much it is. I only care about how much I'm gaining in profit,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's my commission check? What's on the check? You know, I don't even do check anymore. I do wire, because the bank always trying to hold your money up, and I don't like that. It's like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
you know me. But but anyways, I think that's what it is. I think people enjoy the perception of a certain industry, and they rather hold on to that perception rather than the result of making the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So if I can have a perception of I'm a rapper, I'm a player, uh, I got my jewelry on, I drive certain cars, I'm with type of women, that perception is what they're buying into, not the result of actually having the money. If it's just about the money, if it's just about the money, you're not gonna be working forex to make $70,000 a year. You're gonna take your ass to school, and you're gonna make that from 21 all the way up to 30 consistently for the next 10 to 15 years. You can make minimum $75,000. That's not even talking about increases. You going to different jobs. So I think we
And or
hold
your
out too long.
401k.
401k, like benefits, your teeth is nice and crispy clean, and you go into checkups all the time. So these are the type of things that um that you can benefit from if you just like drop the perception that you want.
Yeah, you gotta slow down. Yeah.
You have to drop the perception, and I think a lot of things hold us back from holding on to these old perceptions that we have of how things should be, and how where people should work, and what it should look like, what type of car we should drive, type of clothes we should have on, jewelry, etc. And I think if we can fully let that go, I think people can make better decisions with the data that's available to them.
Yeah.
I think it's possible, but um, I don't know. People don't listen to me because I don't drive down a car. You know.
Well, I mean, I agree. I agree with all of that. And I used to think that that point where things do like kick in on that level was 30.
Yeah, one hundred
You know what I
percent.
mean? I thought it was just when you get to that point of when you're 30 and a little bit older, um, certain things just start to make more sense to you, especially as like a parent,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a younger person, on the 21, 22, 23, um, I wouldn't expect that, from you.
Yeah.
Um, but holding on to things like that though definitely keeps us, because we're trying to keep it real, right? We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
stick to whatever we thought was true, which is what I was saying earlier. I
Mm-hmm.
had to unlearn so much, all these
Yeah.
different cultural or these social obligations, all these unwritten contracts that I had made or that we had
Mm-hmm.
agreed to, and none of it matters. Like none of that shit matters. You know why?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, no matter how much money I had, I didn't have enough money to go buy a building,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Right.
so when you start looking at it that way, and you start analyzing, how to stack up assets, on how to be able to do something like that. Oh, well, this guy, like, okay, this guy just bought 50 units here. What type of person would buy 50 units? What type
Mm-hmm.
of assets does it require? And then when you meet this person, they're worth $100 million. Now they don't have $100 million, but they're worth $100 million, and they buy something like this, and it's like, well, what the hell have I been doing my whole life? Trying
Right.
to be the complete opposite. I'm trying to look
Mm-hmm.
like what I think you look like,
Yeah. And you,
and
you
then they
didn't even
show
meet him.
up.
You didn't meet him at
Exactly,
that point either, which is
exactly.
the crazy thing. Right. This is I'm talking about like our data's flawed. We have no data what these people look like, what they drive, what they
I feel like we
wear, the
do though. I
places
feel
they
like we
go.
do. I feel like we do. We ignore it because we don't want to be that. Our
Mm-hmm.
version is better.
Mm.
I think we do know. I think all those things, all these things are in front of you at every single time. Like I can think back to every single point in my life where now that I know what I'm, certain things, I
Mm-hmm.
can think back to when it was directly in front of me and I ignored it because
Mm-hmm.
I just thought my way was better.
Mm.
That's what we
Like,
do.
no, no. My perception is better.
Yeah, that's what we do. Ours is
Mm.
better. That's literally what we do. Our way is better. If you buy Adidas shell toes, I'm gonna take the laces out of them because it's
Mm-hmm.
better.
Right.
You tie your shoes, I'm gonna unlace my shoes because it's
Mm-hmm.
better.
Right.
You wear skinny pants, I'm gonna sag my skinny pants because it's
Mm-hmm.
better. I'm gonna let you see
Mm-hmm.
these $100 draws
Right. Right.
because my draws are better. These are the things that we do, right? This is everybody wears underwear, but ours are better. Like that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Everything is our way is supposed to be better.
Right. Right.
Right. And so, um, and it's just getting to that point where it was like all this was stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so stupid and worthless. And so it all just comes down to unlearning for me. And I hopefully I know we're just kind of going back and forth, but hopefully, um, this conversation sparks that in people is like really just
Mm-hmm.
trying to unlearn and unravel a lot of the things that are passed down to us as like rules. Like what I was thinking the other day. Ice Cube left NWA in the early '90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, why did he leave NWA?
Because he read the contracts and it wasn't right.
Okay, how is it that here we are, some 30, almost 40 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and artists are still dealing with the same thing from the same people?
Yeah. Um. Hope. Predatory deals.
Is it predatory though? Because the data exists.
I think it's true. It's true for someone who can hold on a little bit longer. I think what makes it predatory is the person who's really out the gutter and don't have anything, right? And well, it makes it more it makes it more likely that person might take the bait because from my perspective, if we been broke, like what's a little bit longer?
No,
I
yeah,
can
yeah, I
delay
agree.
the result if I'm able to um if I'm able to see in the future I can make a lot more, right? So even when I left my commercial company I was working with and I was going to go out and do my own thing, I knew I was going to be broke for a while.
Hmm.
It's in every industry. If you take the money, if you take the money, they're going to own a piece of you. They're just going to own it, and you have to make a decision if you're willing to let them own a piece of you up front.
Yeah, but does that make it predatory?
No, it makes it business.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
But
so,
but that's like everyone has to be like, okay, well, see, in business, everyone thinks that people are looking out for them. No, everyone's looking out for themselves.
hmm
So I can't fault the business owner who's looking to make the best profit, you know? But um I can be like, I still messed up,
yeah, I mean,
you know, because
if you knowingly went into it, like basically with that in mind,
I
absolutely.
it's yeah, with knowing that I'm gonna get over on this person. And and that's what it just comes like, it comes like a morality thing. Like just like I talked about the 19-year-old that wanted to work in the real estate business. I'm like, you're not ready. This is like something I wouldn't do. But I understand it's business. If
hmm
someone said, hey, yeah, man, I'm gonna make you a millionaire in 5 years, you know, but I'm not gonna say that. So I don't know. It's yeah, I think things are the way they are because most people, they take the money, they don't read the contracts, and
Well, and they buy into the percept, like they believe again, like it's like how we started off talking about. We have the data,
mm-hmm,
and it can be used against you, right?
yeah,
And someone can say just ignore it because the data shows you exactly how people get paid. There's books on it, there's videos on
mm-hmm,
it, there's even movies on it,
yeah,
right? And yet the same people are cutting the same checks today, and then 2 and 3 years later, the artist is saying I got robbed.
again, yeah. I'm trying to get out of my
And
contract. Let me out of my contract.
is it? And then it becomes a whole thing of you guys are using us, you're taking advantage of us, you're culture vultures and all these different things.
Mm-hmm,
Um, you know, but how if the information is out there that I've been doing this for
mm-hmm,
40 or 50 years and you refuse to acknowledge the information because of your perception of who you think you are?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is that my fault or yours?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear
Like,
what you're saying.
we can't keep blaming, uh at least in that sense, we can't blame Daniel Takowitz for
Mm-hmm.
signing young greedy Mac. you know
Are these real people or are you just making this up?
no, I'm just making
Okay.
it.
I'm like, I'm way out the loop. I'm way out the loop. I'm like, that sounds like a
No,
person I don't know.
but that's what it would be. And then he get on, and then the first thing they do is they throw him to the wolves, right? And they throw him to the
Mm-hmm.
wolves. You give you some money, you go buy some jewelry, and then you go perform in your city around all
Mm-hmm.
these broke people.
What's interesting is though, um, the people who you would think have your back, right, culturally, right? They only get in these positions and they play the same, they move the
They
same
playing the
way,
same
make the
game,
same
yeah.
plays. So that's what's
hmm
very interesting. But
Well,
they will still hold on to the whole trope of I'm doing it for the culture. We gotta do this for the culture. It's like you playing the same game they were playing,
I don't buy into that anyway
right?
because I
Given the
don't I don't
same contracts, the
I don't
same
I don't
deals.
see I don't see I don't see rap or uh hip hop. I don't see the hip hop industry, the rap industry, as black culture,
Mm-hmm.
because the people who choose who you hear from aren't black people.
Mm. Right.
So you know what I mean. So they're running a TV show, and they search
Mm-hmm.
for talent that fits the needs of the cast.
Mm-hmm.
And if you campaign for that job, they'll find you, right? So if you out here campaigning, to be the continuation of the last 35 guys that they just signed,
Mm-hmm.
they'll find you. And you can make a lot of money doing that, being a party promoter, basically,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what you are. They put you on a flyer, you perform at the club, you get your show money, you go to the next
Mm-hmm.
club, you make more music so they can put you back on the flyer and make more money until you go to now you start throwing stadium parties, and arena parties and whatnot. But it's essentially what you are. You're a party promoter. Um, so as long as you campaign for that job, they'll find you,
Mm.
right? But I don't think that's culture. I think those are people who just want to be that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I look at community. Community is a group of people who share similar interest,
Mm-hmm.
and culture is what that group practices. That's like my definition of it. Now it might be different from other people's, but that's just how I see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if
So
you're
what do you
part of
mean
the,
about what they practice?
meaning that the things that they do
Mm-hmm.
on the regular, like repetitiously, things they believe in, things they buy into, their creed, rules they live by, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their way of life.
Mm-hmm.
We
Right.
we can be a part of the Black community, but that doesn't, we might not be part of like a certain um subculture within the community.
Mm. Okay.
You know what I mean? So yes, we have similar interests of being Black men, but I'm not of, this community or this subculture
Mm-hmm.
because I don't meet the criteria,
Right. Right.
right? And so I feel
I
like
can see
they're
that.
choosing I feel like they're choosing very, very specific people from the smallest like sect of our group to
Mm-hmm.
determine what you know, the overall
They just blanket that as culture
yeah,
for the whole community. Right. I can see
absolutely.
that. Right. Right.
And so if you don't fit that, you no longer fit in. And then what that does
Mm-hmm.
is it creates a wedge
Mm-hmm.
and a division um between us and people who could potentially be a resource for us because they don't want to be around you.
Mm-hmm.
If you out here doing if you live in a certain way and you have a lot to lose and you have a lot to protect, like there's going to be some things you want no part of, and that's just being honest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want
Yeah.
no
That's true.
parts of what's going on over here because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want it to reflect on me. I don't want it to be reflect on my brand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any of the consequences that come with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and I think that's why ultimately when artists end up in trouble, they never really have an olive branch
Mm-hmm.
for someone to help dig them out because they've been isolated. They've been
Right.
tucked under the wing of a totally different like culture,
Right. Right. Right.
right? That removes you from all of your resources.
Mm-hmm. Their outlets are really other people in that culture,
Yeah,
in that
it
industry.
has to go
Yeah.
through a Leor Cohen or who's a real person, but it has to go through like
Mhm.
a
Yeah, I know.
someone who in position, you know, within those ranks.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
I never
you
thought
know,
of that, but you make a great point. I've never in my head, um, separated different subcultures within the community, but it makes a whole lot of sense because
hell yeah.
um, I think in some ways I'm not part of certain subcultures anymore, only because the shit don't work for
Yeah, I
what
mean,
I'm
well,
doing. I think
bro,
that's what it ultimately goes down to. It doesn't work for what I'm doing.
you wear chanclas.
Right.
Okay? Like this,
I be hating on my chocolates.
yeah, I'm
Hating on my
just saying
chocolates. Yeah, sometimes that.
everybody's not everybody's not like they're not gonna do that.
So
Everybody's not secure enough to do that.
it's very interesting because I never thought I would get to this point where, um, there's always like this thing of if you're not black enough, I can be at the point where somebody's like, that guy is not black enough.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't represent what the culture represents. And it's like, well, no, like we're part of a large community of people who are different. Like there's a culture of black people who are really into anime. I'm
Yeah.
not really into anime, but I remember watching the the most popular one was like what was it, Dragon Ball Z, but
Mm-hmm.
there's it goes deep. People are really into that, and they
My
would call
sister
those
has a
people
whole
and say they're not
podcast
black
on
enough.
anime. Like that it's
Yeah,
yeah,
Phoenix is one of them. Yeah,
exactly.
she's really into it. So someone from another subculture within a community and say they're not black enough. Like they have the overall blacky black card on the whole community.
Hmm.
I never thought about that.
It's the truth. We can be a part of the same community, but I don't. There's different subcultures. We all practice
Mm-hmm.
different things,
Yeah.
right? And that line gets blurred, and we keep thinking that like we're all supposed to be a part of the same thing, or we are a part of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go outside of when you go outside of your community, essentially you are kind of treated as you're the same. But the reality is
Mm-hmm.
within our community, we're not. It's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like in
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be a person shouldn't be told they don't belong because they're not from
Mm-hmm.
uh the subculture that you're in.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I think no subculture is better than the other either. I
no.
mean, it's so many too. It's so many.
I think that's what and luckily with the internet, a lot of these lines are getting blurred because
Mm-hmm.
you're being able to experience people on a deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
other than just looking at them or seeing them. You're in many situations you're able to kind of hear them talk about life and how they
Right.
perceive things, and you can say, okay, I see how this person's actually got something going on, vice
Mm-hmm.
versa, right? You can learn
Right.
from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But that also makes it very clear of who to stay away from, because it's like, well, this person's obviously a clown. I can tell by the way they're
Mm-hmm.
talking. So
Mm-hmm.
um it goes both ways, but ultimately, yeah, I think for one, I think we would be, not that I'm trying to solve all African American problems, but I think we'd be far better off if we just understood that we're allowed, like if we would just allow each other to be different,
Mm-hmm.
that we can be um a much better resource for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll be able to um cross those different subcultures a lot more fluid.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the largest issues of uh, someone keeping it real within their subculture. They're not allowed to leave because they have to keep it real. They have to
Hmm.
keep that authentic self based on what they've learned up to, I don't know, maybe 10 years old up to 21. They have to remain that person for the rest of their lives. And I think that's whack. I think that's completely whack.
Hmm.
So from 10 years old all the way up to 21, whatever you've learned or whoever you're around, you have to continue to be that for the rest of your life, all the way up until, and if you're a man, I mean, we died pretty early, black man. So you're looking at
Yeah.
67, and for the women, 75, 76. So from 21 to 70 to mid 60s to 70, you have to be the same person to be considered real. That's so trash,
Yeah.
right? And this is for the person who's in a certain subculture within a community, and they can't do anything different, or they feel like they can't do anything different because they feel like they could not be they cannot be their
They won't
authentic
be
self.
welcomed. Yeah, they won't be welcomed amongst the
Yeah.
people who, you know, amongst the people who they feel support them the most.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, um I feel like we've been able to go into a lot of rooms that many people like wouldn't be able to go into on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like business wise and just in life. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have access to certain rooms that people wouldn't normally have access to.
Mm-hmm.
Um and if you just be yourself, people will respect you and like leave you alone.
Sounds so simple.
I know, but it's like it's just crazy because everyone's like, I won't say everyone, but you see people who are just trying to put on like an act of
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
they think it should be, or
Yeah.
what they think people would want from them. And it's like, bro, just relax. Like,
Yeah.
just be yourself. And
One.
everyone will mess with you, regardless of where you line up at.
Mm-hmm.
People will respect you and and whatnot, just based on you being who you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it enough times. Like, I've been in enough situations where people just, it's like, they'll accept you for you. It's when you start to become other things and try to hold on to that, or
Mm-hmm.
when you get older and try to hold on to them, uh, even more intensely, because maybe you missed out on it when you were younger.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're older and you want to hold on to things that you probably should have let go of 5 or 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
or 20 years ago.
Right.
Um, I think that's when people start to question you.
And I think this is like specifically for the person who knows certain shit ain't for them anymore, but they stick
Yeah.
to it anyway. Like this is not. I don't even think this is for the person who is completely like, I don't want to say arrogant or I don't. This is not for the person who really is who they are, right? I would never encourage somebody to be something they're not. But there's people out there that says that they have a feeling that they can cross those certain lines and be their full selves no matter where they are, and they don't do it.
Yeah,
They don't
exactly.
do it because it's not going to be in line with with their authentics. It's not going to be real. It's not going to be considered keeping it real.
Yeah.
Or they're scared of what people are going to say if they go to certain areas, or if they wear a certain thing, or if they're reading a
Hmm.
certain book or listen to a certain music.
Or if they read the
Like,
book at all.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, oh, you reading now? Oh, okay, that's what's up.
Okay, yeah. Right. Okay. Look at you over trying to be smart. Okay.
Hmm. You're like, all right,
Yeah.
Malcolm X. Yeah, they be on that.
Right. All that. Yeah. All that. So, I encourage people to be their full selves, um, no matter what. I don't know what we got on that, but we preaching tonight.
I'm sorry we didn't tell you how to get rich yet, but if you've been listening to this podcast, waiting on the answer of how to get rich, uh,
these are
sorry we
these are
have
breadcrumbs. No, it's coming. Episode 10.
episode 10.
Next
Speaking of that,
episode.
man, I bumped into a guy. He was walking around here selling solar.
Mm-hmm.
A young kid from Alabama packed up his car. Him and his buddy drove from Alabama to here, right, to sell. Or I won't say sell because he said he's not a salesman, but he basically was like door to door,
Mm-hmm.
um, to sell solar.
Right.
And I was like, man, you know what? You should do real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't know much about it. I was like, well, how'd you get in here? Because my parents live in a gated community,
Mm-hmm.
so you know what I mean. So I'm like, how'd you get in here?
Right.
And he's like, oh, well, I just follow somebody in. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So it's things like that. I'm like, man, you drove all the way out here to sell solar. You drove all the way
Mm-hmm.
to California,
Mm-hmm.
the land of $2 million properties in the ghetto. You drove all the way to California to sell
Mm-hmm.
solar equipment.
Right.
I was like, man, you need to get a license in the next 2 weeks, and it's gonna take longer than that. But you
Mm-hmm.
need to go get a license, or at least go to a company and interview. And before you go home, like, even if you go home and do it, you
Mm-hmm.
need to do real estate,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
like, because
Yeah. I mean,
it's
you're
you're doing
knocking the
everything
same
else right
doors.
now. Exactly,
You're knocking the
exactly.
same doors. If canvassing, right, is what you would call it in
Yeah,
commercial and residential.
both. Man,
From door
you know how
to.
many houses I went to when
Mm-hmm.
people don't answer the phone when I call, I go to their house.
Yeah, you pull up, and that's the thing. Like with real estate, um, because there's a misconception that people real estate is like a big secret, but uh, when you're talking about selling real estate, you go to people who own real estate. So if you don't own real
Hmm.
estate, you're most likely not going to be approached. You go to the
Yeah,
source.
basically. Yeah.
The other only option is trying to convince somebody not to buy $1,000 a month car so they can buy a house first.
Yeah.
That's your two options. So yeah, but I mean, he's already working with
He's already
people.
putting in the work.
He just needs a different result.
And what I really wish I had in the moment was I know we talked about it before, but I'm gonna put it on the pod now for accountability purposes. I wish I really could have had something to give him, like a Creighton Real Estate Associates, um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, guide to getting licensed or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, new course coming out, guys. How to get licensed in real estate. It's only going to be $97.99, but for today only, it's going to be
it's
it's
$2.99.
going to be $17.
um,
uh, no, yeah, that'll be cool. Um, that those type of things are coming down the pipeline. January, I'm going to start um, our the beginning of our real estate training for new incoming real estate agents.
okay, that's that.
So
All right.
that's going to be in June. So it's going to be it's going to be similar to what we do in the stock group. Um, weekly trainings, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
field training, looking at properties, evaluating properties, learning contracts, real estate contracts, that type of thing. Basically, learning the business.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'll be meeting with a few more incoming real estate agents within the next couple of weeks and months, and um, we're gonna start building a brokerage. Which, yeah, I mean, it's time now. You know, I've been. This is my fifth year with the brokerage,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, it works. It
Mm-hmm.
works. It can sustain itself. Um, I have no business debt, no personal debt. So now it's time to kind of grow. So I'm excited for that.
Why don't you just drop the course, bro, of like how to start a real estate brokerage?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good. Yeah, if I stop doing the business and slow down and
The word, and I know we're speaking in jest. Um, the word course just sounds so dirty now, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound kind of dirty? Like,
yeah, yeah,
because I would encourage someone to do that because it makes sense, but when you say it, it just sounds cringy.
yeah. Um, I don't know. Maybe. And it's a whole thing of marketing the course. Um, and now I'm the type of person that just I'll probably build something and give it away, which I probably need to stop doing. This is why I'm not rich by Monday.
Yeah,
I
man.
don't know, but maybe it'll be like a free information that I can give away or different resources. And if you want like a one-on-one type thing, it's a different price, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I'm hungry enough to do that. If I'm really honest with myself,
Well,
but
is it hungry or is just that just a different industry?
I think it is. I mean, that's education. That's an educational industry.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I can sit down and teach somebody um, how to read contracts, um, how to negotiate deals, how to analyze buildings or properties. Um, I guess I'm doing it anyway. Once I say it out loud, it's just
Yeah, I
not
mean,
written
I don't
down.
know. It's I mean, now that we kind of have like a case study, like with the stock group,
Mm-hmm.
um, it still feels different. Like it
Mm-hmm.
still feels like I'm doing something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
it's so much value behind it. It's not just like I didn't wake up yesterday and try to figure out how to start a real estate brokerage, and now next month I'm going to sell a course on it. That's whack. That's corny. So maybe it is different. It is different. It's just the market is so flooded with the bull that it just it just feels tainted and it feels gross. And I don't know how to work through that yet. You know,
Mhm.
it
All right,
might
well
be.
maybe next week we'll be we'll feel
Yeah,
better about it.
come back, come back next week and see if you get that course for $97.
Is next week's episode 10? Is it 10? Are we on 10 already?
Yep, yep.
Wow, we did
This is
something for
9.
10 weeks.
Yeah, we're going 30 for 30. I don't know. It feels good. How you feel? I mean, that's something we should talk about the next time. We can talk about it now. It's our
It's
podcast.
our podcast. We're gonna do fires. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels. I mean, it feels good to just do something consistently again. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like something meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
um, over and over again. Um, because I never thought about being. I never thought about doing this, let alone like being on YouTube.
Yeah,
Like I just realized the other day I'm on YouTube.
yeah. I kind of forget that too. And well, I look at a lot of YouTube and I see it. I'm just like,
But
my
I
face
don't.
is
I
up there.
never. Yeah, I never put two and two
Yeah,
together. Like I'm a YouTuber
yeah.
in a sense.
Technically,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
That's true. That's true.
Um. So I mean, it feels good to do it because I know like I know in the future, like right now, while we're kind of just doing this the way we're doing it, and I know in the
Mm-hmm.
future, um, where we can be,
Mm-hmm.
and I often live in the future, for the good and the bad. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, it
Yeah,
feels
you
good to just
drive me
be.
crazy.
It feels good to.
Definitely like a. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it feels good, man. It feels good. I mean, even when I was looking at buildings, like for potential, um, like space, like lease spaces,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, I always look at the craziest one. But
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. You drive me crazy. It's like you
um,
would go directly to Z. If y'all don't know, like Jerry would go directly to Z, and I'm the more conservative person. If you can't tell by now, I'm the more conservative person. So it's a lot of. I think we work good in that way because he's like, no, let's do this, and I'm like, okay, let's do that, but let's do ABC first. He's like, all right, fine, we'll do ABC, but like this is where we're gonna be, and I'm like, okay.
I think we got to push each other. We got to
Yeah.
we got to push each other in both directions. Like, I like to
No,
look
I
at
think
it
it
like
works.
I break the ceilings, you patch up the floor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It's like I'm gonna lay a step.
Yeah.
It's like we building a staircase. It's like you got the railings going straight up, and like I'm building steps.
Yeah, I can see that because I'm just like, look, man, it's gonna be stairs here.
I'm like, yo, I see the rail. I see where you're going with this staircase. It looks good. I'm not hating on it. I like it. I like it. You got the gold BBSs on it. I like it.
Go BBSs on that joint. Yeah, I mean, I
I'm like,
definitely
we need steps there. But
I can
I'm
see
a
that.
utilitarian in that in that way. Like I'm looking strictly at the utility of things. Um, it's just how it is.
Yeah.
But
All
it,
right. Well,
it
next
works.
week, man. Next week is week 10. We pushing for 30, just to see, just to kind of look back at everything. How you feel about having guests? Because we never talked about that yet.
Yeah. It's funny.
We could
That
wrap it
just
up.
came up. I talked to a listener to the podcast, Tyrone Alfred. Shout out Tyrone.
Tyrone.
And yeah, he was the first thing he said was, "Man, I'm just really proud of y'all, man. I'm just like, I open my Apple podcast, and I see y'all face. I see your face." He's like, so yeah, he was just like saying he was just really proud of us, and he's like, and what you talking about? It's what we've been talking about for like over the last 10 years. It's like
Yeah.
it's the same conversations. And I'm like, yeah, it's a trip, right? But we're just pressing record and playing now, pressing
Mm-hmm.
play. Um, so with that being said, oh, he also said, he was like, yo, I gotta ask. He's like, when's the mobile gonna be on? Shout out Will.
Yeah, shout out Mo.
Some will, some won't on Instagram. But yeah, that's one of our OGs. Which we met real early. But yeah, I think there'll be times for people to get on jump on the podcast and have guests, and people don't have to just listen to us all the time.
Yeah.
So it'll be a cool thing to kind of shake it up.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Um, I think there's some. I mean, it's networking, right? So people always, everyone wants to hop on everyone's podcast and whatnot, and
Mm-hmm.
to some degree, I'm okay with that. But at the same time, like I don't know you. Like if I don't
Mm-hmm.
know you, it's hard for me to stand next to you because I don't know what you represent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I always think about the downside risk, right? If I stand next to
Yeah.
you and then you turn out to be someone you shouldn't or you don't present yourself to be,
Mm-hmm.
now there's a stain on my rep.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so outside of who I can vouch for in life, um, it'd be kind of hard for me to pick,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Right.
outside of like our friends and certain people. It's like it'd be kind of hard for me to,
Yeah.
I don't know, to pick somebody.
I
So I mean,
mean,
it's something I'm
I
still
get
thinking
that,
about.
but
Yeah.
but you know what? I think what you could be looking at. Well, this is just what I think. Um, when we look at other podcasts or people that's online, they're usually putting different people on, right? And I think they're doing this, and they're not vetting. I'm almost sure they're not vetting these people if they're really about the business or if they really do the business that they're on their platform to present.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they do it in an effort to, for one, push content and to speed up their following.
Mm-hmm.
And if if we're not in the business of making this thing crack fast, we can take the time to vet certain people, and decide who we want to, you know, be a guest on the podcast. So I'm not I'm not in any rush to, invite random people on for views, you know, for
Mm-hmm.
views or clouds or sharing their viewer base. I mean, I don't care about none of that,
it's,
you know.
it's funny. It's funny to hear like it's funny because it's true. Like because somebody messaged me and or they actually texted me
Mm-hmm.
and a while ago, like around the time we first started, and they have a pretty sizable following, but I don't know this person. Like we kind of know each other through mutual people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know this person, and it was kind of like, well, you know, like they of course they want to get on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time, I'm like, yeah, we'll figure it out one day.
Mm-hmm.
But now, because I've been seeing some questionable things happening, I'm like, you know what? I don't know, because I don't know you, right? Like
Right,
I don't
right.
know, like what can I put you on for that I couldn't put someone else that I know on for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's okay. You have the following, yeah, sure. We might be able to add X amount of followers or go viral or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's gonna be something that's tough to get around. I mean, is I don't know. Is that the only way to grow? Is to sell out? That's what we talking about.
I
That's what we talking about. Are we selling out?
don't
I
even know if I
felt.
would. I don't know. I don't know, man. Selling out. I mean, I know what you mean when you say that, but I'm just. I think what it is one, we haven't spent enough time on the internet yet to understand how
Mm-hmm.
these things work.
Yeah.
But as like
Yeah.
digital entrepreneurs and creators, but but what
It
it is
sounds
like when
funny.
you you see the like for me, I see like the cringe worthy stuff that people do
Hmm.
that works,
Yeah.
you know, and I just don't want to be a part of that. Like when you know when you like if I could pay 10 grand right now and take a and take a picture or get a IGTV video
Hmm.
with any celebrity, they'd do it for
Shout
10
out.
grand for 20
Yeah.
minutes,
Hmm.
right? Um, and I would just feel weird taking your money,
Hmm. Hmm.
knowing that we don't even know each other. But I did it specifically for you to pay
Yeah.
me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I mean, we're not selling them with the podcast, but essentially, if you're paying attention, like that's how I feel. Like if so,
Yeah.
if I'd be robbing you of your time by making you believe I have a relationship with somebody that I paid for.
Hmm. Hmm. It's so hard, man, because we don't have maybe the data's available. I haven't looked for it honestly, but maybe the data is available where someone is authentically drawn to certain things and they grow in that way. Um, just like you
I
said,
mean,
I don't have enough time, enough data with this internet stuff.
I mean, look at Rogan. I kind of look at Rogan. Like Rogan talks to everybody.
Hmm. I mean, he also been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, so he can afford to talk to everybody.
Yeah, but it's also like a slow grow. And I don't know what he did in the beginning to grow, but I mean, he's
He did
also
it. He did exactly what we're doing right now, except it was with cigarettes
yeah.
and alcohol.
And if I believe, he just invited his friends on.
Yeah,
I mean, he's in the industry of comedians and people in the industry, entertainment industry, but these are his friends. So I don't see why we can't mirror that same thing and invite our friends on. If we walking through life and we meet more people and we connect, we can invite those people on. If we don't, we don't. That's the best thing about doing your own thing. It's like, no, no, I would
yeah.
not like to have you on as a guest. Respectively, you know,
Respectfully.
respectfully, you know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So I think we should just do it that way. Just try not to put too much pressure on it. Um, keep showing up, keep showing up, keep learning, keep networking as normal, and just do it that
Mhm.
way. And if it doesn't, because I think if it doesn't work that way, we're not gonna be happy the way it worked out. You're gonna have
Yeah.
like a bad taste in your mouth, like I don't believe I gave this fool $10,000 just to do this.
That's
And
what
now I
I
got 1,000
say.
followers, and it's like
That's
this is. I feel stupid. I feel like it's gonna be especially you because you have a better memory. You would relive it over and over. I'll
every
forget it
day,
pretty quickly.
every minute of every day, it would be in my head.
Yeah. So it's too early to sell out. It's too early to sell out.
All right, well, I think we could wrap it up, man.
Right. We
Been
just
we just chopping it up at this point. It's
yeah.
been another episode of the Rich by Monday podcast where we don't tell you how to get rich. Um,
Until episode 10, every 10th episode.
episode 10, we're gonna give y'all everything. We're giving you all the secrets,
Yeah.
all the
10, 20,
game.
30, 40, 50. You gonna get it.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Make sure you like and subscribe. Um, drop a comment in it below if anything resonated with you. I know we covered a good amount of things today, and most of it was just really really insightful, which I think was necessary, just from all the running around and stuff that everyone's been doing. I feel like we haven't really had like meaningful conversations um, in a while. I mean, across the board, even with just anybody,
Yeah.
because everybody's just in motion. So, yeah. Any last words, Dorrance?
Nope, that's it. Come back next week for episode 10, and we'll let you know how to get rich by Monday. Thanks for coming again.
All right, y'all. Peace out.
Later.